Guys, I've got to if you forgive me, I want to get some calls in because we've got calls for Chile, and that's very, very important we get these through. So, Amy, let's take a call.
We've got someone who'd like some advice. It's Kaz on line 2.
Kaz, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, and you've got a question for Cecilia, I understand. What's up, Kaz?
Well, basically, my boyfriend self-harmed. We've tried to chat. Well, I caught him. The first time I saw him with a cut on his arm, and I didn't think nothing of it because he was like I was in a fight with someone. And then when he got home before me one time, I got home and he was beating up himself, and I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then like he stopped and he was like, "Oh, babe, I don't know." And I was like, "Okay." And then like I used to see him with like cuts and bruises here and there, and I always used to ask him, "What are you doing?"
How old is he, Kaz?
He's 25.
25. Cecilia, over to you.
So I went out on Valentine's Day and put my boxing bag and boxing gloves and everything. And now we try and challenge, like, use the boxing. Like I say, well, anytime you feel like you need to self-harm, like, he's got a picture of himself on the thing, because I know it's, like, to do with him. So we've got a picture on the boxing bag, and he, like, boxes it out. And, like, he really goes for himself. And I don't know, we always talk afterwards, but I don't know what it is, and he doesn't even, when we talk about it, he doesn't even know what it is. So I was wondering, I don't know, we're just actually stuck for what to do.
I'll tell you what, Kaz, I think it's amazing that you've tried to figure a way through it on your own. I think that's fantastic.
Tell him to take up the marathon. He takes up the marathon. You go through pain, but...
Yes, I mean, Kaz, obviously you're living with something that's very frightening, and I think it's very frightening for both of you. One of the things that people find when they're self-harming is that they often don't really know what it is that they're doing to themselves or why they're doing it to themselves, other than that they are causing themselves pain. And I think, as Ellie has said, it's a way of sort of externalizing the internal struggle that is going on. And often with men, I'm seeing more and more men in my consulting room, and they're not 16, 17-year-olds, you know, there are 30, 35, 45-year-olds who are coming in doing this. So for men, this is becoming an increasing problem. And I think it's a way of sort of saying, look, I'm desperately, desperately unhappy.
What do you make of this boxer size thing? Is this
well, it's a way of getting, that's a way of getting out the aggression and the upset. But I think that actually what would be more helpful is for him to find a way of talking about his feelings and being able to process those feelings, understanding that his feelings are not going to hurt him. It's what he's doing with his feelings that are hurting him.
Are we talking professional help here?
Yeah, I would say so. If he's doing it to this extent, and you've obviously been really supportive and really trying to help him out with this, but I think if it's carrying on, that it would be really good for him to go along to see his GP, get some psychological help, because we've got very good treatments for people who self-harm nowadays. You don't have to go through all of this misery. There's a lot of very good therapy out there, a way of understanding. These are feelings that you're having. There's obviously pain, but you can do something about it, and you can do it by processing those feelings in a healthy way.
And it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, that a lot of psychological issues, at the time that they're manifesting themselves, the person concerned doesn't necessarily know why they feel the way they do. In fact, probably doesn't.
Particularly for men, because men, we know from the research that men do not know what they're feeling very well. They've got this something called alexithymia, which is a condition particularly for men, where they just don't know how to process emotions. They can't name them because they haven't been brought up to be able to express them.
And I think basically it's happiness. We're missing happiness in our society, and we've all got to take responsibility, whether it's the church, parents, teachers, MPs. Policies that we put in society, people have got to face is what they're lacking. Just bring this unhappiness feeling inside you, thinking, I can't cope, it's too much.
Kaz, thank you for the call. And I've still, as I said, if we can get some help for your boyfriend, great, but I think it's fantastic that you've rung up anyway. Appreciate it, Amy.
We've got Paula now on line 3.
Paula, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, what's up with you?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I came home to find my daughter self-harming.
And what was she doing, and how old is she?
She's 13, and she was slashing her arm. And the thing is, my husband died 16 months ago, her dad. And then this year, in January, I found lumps in my breast. And obviously, we were all very frightened. But I've had her with, you know, I've had her see a psychologist, psychiatrist. We had family therapy. And she convinced all of them that she was feeling much happier, and so much so that they discharged her. And as soon as they had, this is when she started self-harming.
Right.
but not as a result. I feel it's not as a result of the grief. She's become a part of emo culture.
OK, now let's bring Cecilia in here. Time I'm always very aware is short because we have to pay our bills.
Yeah.
Emo culture, I keep hearing this term, and it makes me angry because I just think emo is just a lazy tabloid term for a rock and roll band, and every rock and roll can't be blamed for everything. But there's clearly issues going on here.
Absolutely. I mean, there's huge amounts of loss here, Paula, and I think that is what your daughter is trying to process. And at 13, she doesn't have the emotional maturity to be able to think about what she's doing to herself and the reasons why she's doing it. The more open you can have the conversations be, the less judgmental, the less, in fact, that you sort of buy into the drama of it all. I think the more helpful it will be just to have very gentle conversations about the loss of her father, the fact that you've been ill, that she's probably got feelings of abandonment. I know that Ellie was talking to me earlier about one of the real horrors for people who have this problem is that they feel they're going to be abandoned, and cutting and self-harming is really about saying, look at me, I need help, I'm desperate for help, but I can't talk to you about what that help has to be.
Even though she's been through these different therapists.
Sometimes you've got to go through therapy a few times before it starts to work, and at 13 she's so young. You know, she doesn't have the sort of maturity.
Sat there and Ellie nodding along.
I've been to a lot of psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists. I've seen a lot of them.
For me, you know, I'm 26, and it was only a year and a half ago that I properly dealt with my childhood. And that's, you know, it takes a long time.
It does. It takes a long time.
And it is perfectly plausible that a 13-year-old girl can convince psychologists, psychiatrists that she's OK,
you just have to sit there and smile.
Yeah.
It's like telling your teacher that you've done your homework.
I mean, psychologists are human. We want people to get better. We want them to be well. And if they're telling us that they're well and they're looking well, then we have to have to on that.
Okay,
we can't keep them in therapy.
So your last word to Paula, as clearly a very frustrated mum, would be to take her daughter back?
I think have a conversation with your daughter about whether she thinks that she'd be ready to go back into therapy to really deal with this. But don't be surprised if she's not. And it might be that by her joining a subculture like the emo culture, where actually they're very supportive, these kids. They're kids who are actually in touch with the fact that adolescence is a really difficult time. They're not wasters and losers. They're sweet kids who sort of join together and they want to sort of try and understand their feelings. So I don't think it's a real drama that she's part of that emo culture, but instead of acting out on the feelings, like cutting herself, talk about them with her friends. Because often talking with your peers, with people your own age, can do a lot more good than talking to some adult who you think doesn't have an understanding of what you're going through.
You know, Matthew, I go into a lot of schools and I do a lot of inspirational talks to kids. And when I start talking to them emotionally, like you're saying, what comes out is incredible. Even the teachers say, I never knew that's what happened to the child. A lot of kids just come up and say, thank you. So it's just, you don't know where it's going to come from. That's why I say we've all got to take responsibility.
Yeah. OK. We've got to move on, take a break. Paula, thank you for the call. I wish your daughter all the best. We've got to move on, as I said. Can't go, though, without saying huge thank to Ellie, who's come all the way down from Fife, which I'm chuffed to bits about, and Satvir from Wolverhampton, and Cecilia as well for giving up her time and expert advice. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, ladies. Nice one. Nice one. Now, there's clearly a few people out there that didn't get through a lot, actually. If you need to speak to someone right now, probably the best number I can offer you is the Samaritans. Their 24-hour helpline is on 08457 90 90 90. That's 08457 90 90 90. After the ad session...